In the next 2 minutes, I want to make you think about and reflect on something that we call the forgetting curve. Now, the forgetting curve was introduced by Ebbinghaus in 1885, so nearly 150 years ago, yet some of this research is only just starting to filter down to the classroom right now. And what this means is that learning should be a lasting change in long-term memory, not just something that students have remembered today and forgotten tomorrow. And what Ebbinghaus says is that actually on the day of instruction, our students get lots and lots of different information. And if you think about that in any phase, whether it is from primary school all the way to post-16, they're probably getting different topics or different lessons and different teachers every hour, every day. So lots and lots of information. And what Ebbinghaus looked at in his research is that within a day or so, about 50% of that information is actually lost. It's not going to be retained because of the amount that actually is our working memory capacity. And within 7 days, almost 90% of that has gone. That's quite frightening. When I talk to trainee teachers about this, they're like, how does this even work in teaching? How can we do this? Well, the answer to this is actually we've got to do something called use it or you lose it. That's a great kind of phrase to remember, is that how do we get our students to remember and almost have that fetch and carry of what did we do yesterday? So you're almost doing some little retrieval activities from things we did yesterday. Now, you can't always do it every day from everything we did before because you wouldn't have any time to teach. But actually, it's then thinking about every time we retrieve something, it makes that memory trace stronger. So we can maybe do something, we retrieve it from yesterday. We might then be able to leave it 2 or 3 days and retrieve it later on in the week, 3 or 4 days later, and then leave the gap. And every time we have a successful retrieval, we can leave the gap a little bit longer every time. And that's what we call spacing. So we can actually space things out and then start to retrieve it. So the foundation behind this is the forgetting curve. So eventually we can then start to retrieve things 6 days later, and then 2 or 3 weeks later, and then 6 months later, and then 2 or 3 years later, and we've got that concrete memory of something. But it all comes back to Ebbinghaus's work in 1885 on the forgetting curve. So think about, in your classroom, how can you build in mini, small retrieval tasks from previous work so you're catching that forgetting curve. So if you look at the graph online, it starts here at 100% on kind of the moment of input, and that curve drops very quickly over 7 days to 90% of that information lost. How can you kind of catch that curve? By doing retrieval activities that just kind of pulls that curve up again and allows your students to remember more information. So more retrieval, more regular retrieval, and the forgetting curve is the foundation behind it.